I've worked with thousands of clients to repair their broken relationships. And the one thing that stands out is that before they come to me, most of their failed reconciliations share the same mistake. And that is that people focus on surface level changes, which is like trying to fix a broken clock by replacing the battery. And so much of the deeper psychological work that truly matters is missed. So if you're trying to win your ex back, or you're trying to just repair your relationship, emotional stability is a non-negotiable. And a lot of us consider ourselves emotionally stable. However, there are many, many subtle ways in which this instability comes out. Because the truth is, without very strong emotional stability, even the best intentions fall apart. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the mistakes people make in trying to rebuild their emotional stability during your breakup. And then I'm going to guide you through the exact steps to rebuild that stability from the ground up so that you can approach reconciliation and reattraction with the clarity and confidence that you need to make it last. So the first thing that I want to address is why so many quick fixes after a breakup backfire. So a lot of people assume that the best way to handle a breakup is to prove how quickly they can move on. Maybe they try and jump into a new relationship, or they try to showcase their independence, thinking that, showing off on social media or joining a gym or whatever it is, making these bold moves are going to win their ex back or help them move forward past the previous relationship. But the problem is that this approach is really deeply flawed, and more times than not, it leads to more pain. So that first biggest mistake is rushing into a rebound relationship. A lot of people can get broken up with and then sort of tell themselves, well, I just need to find someone new. I'm going to be fine. I didn't do anything wrong. I just need to move forward and find the right person, find someone who's going to accept me for me. But sometimes subconsciously, they can have at the back of their mind, this will show my ex that I'm doing better without them. And, on the surface, it feels like a logical decision. Because ultimately you can distract yourself from the pain and project an image of strength to people around you, to your ex-partner. But this mindset avoids the most critical part of healing, which is actually dealing with the breakup itself. This avoidance tricks you into thinking that you're moving on, when in reality, you're only really suppressing your emotions. You're only putting a band-aid on them in order to make yourself feel better temporarily. And this makes it impossible to fully process any sort of breakup. And if you're trying to repair a relationship, it can actually cause a lot more damage, because this desperate move to make yourself feel better can actually prove to your partner that you aren't ready to be in a long-term mature relationship. But worst of all, by moving on so quickly, this leaves you repeating the same patterns when a new relationship inevitably runs into challenges. Rebound relationships rarely work because they're built on escape, not connection. So when the foundation of any relationship is avoiding pain, it's doomed to collapse. And this is one of the biggest mistakes, that people jump into these rebound relationships and then realize that they actually do want to continue working on the relationship with their ex-partner. So it's not impossible to bounce back from, but it can cause a lot more damage than needs to be done in the meantime. If you keep running from emotional pain, your brain gets stuck in the past. Your brain and your body don't magically just move forward because you found a new partner. What happens is the pain lingers, and it subtly shapes your actions, your words, and your interactions. It's like covering a gaping wound with a band-aid instead of actually treating it. So you may hide this injury, but it's still there, festering, getting worse, and getting more painful. So whether you try to replace your previous partner with someone new, this leads into the same trap, which is unresolved pain. And that leads me on to the next big mistake, which is emotional shutdown. So emotional shutdown is another really common mistake. This often looks like people sort of getting into this mindset of, well, I'm just done with love. I don't need to be in a relationship. I don't want to be in a relationship. Or worse, I hate women. Women are terrible people. There's all of these feelings of just pretending that relationships aren't part of human baseline needs, right? We can isolate ourselves to avoid dealing with this sort of heartbreak. And this is where people convince themselves that they're protecting their emotions, but what they're actually doing is planting seeds for longer term problems. When you suppress these emotions, it doesn't just increase mental strain, it also takes a toll on your body. So if you suppress sadness or let this anger take over, this pushes your brain into overdrive, and this redirects your energy into more avoidance patterns where you avoid having a relationship, period. And over time, this raises your stress levels, disrupts your sleep, and it even impacts your immune function. So not only are you prolonging your emotional pain, but you're also putting your health at risk. So these avoidance strategies, whether it's rushing into a rebound relationship or shutting everything out, trap you in a cycle of unresolved heartbreak. You end up carrying this pain into the next relationship, whether it's with your ex or not. And this sabotages your ability to have true connection in the future, which creates more of these avoidance tendencies. So ultimately, avoiding the pain doesn't remove it. It buries it until it resurfaces in really destructive ways. So each time you ignore these emotions, you're setting yourself up for really unhealthy behaviors, like lashing out or withdrawing at the wrong moments or clinging too tightly and being needy with someone else. These patterns ruin new and old connections and make it nearly impossible to reattract your ex-partner. The ultimate irony is that these quick fixes are meant to help you move on. It happens in our gut where we feel like this is the right thing to do. This is a sensible thing to do. We convince ourselves that this is what a normal person would do. But in listening to our gut, it actually ends up destroying our chances of making real progress, real growth. And ultimately, if you're trying to reattract your ex-partner back, it damages the chances of that repair because it shows your partner that you are still trapped in this cycle. They damage your emotional stability and they compromise the foundation of healthy relationships. And this will ooze out of every pore in communicating with your ex-partner or even a new partner. Ultimately, people are drawn to emotional authenticity and security, not someone who is lost in a whirlwind of avoiding things or, chaotically rebounding and getting into unhealthy relationship patterns. So I want to make this very, very clear, if it isn't already. The only way out is through. The pain of a breakup needs to be faced directly, without shortcuts, without emotional detours. Confronting this sadness, reflecting on what went wrong, and sitting with those difficult feelings is going to be really uncomfortable, but it's also the only way to grow. So quick fixes don't just fail, they backfire. But the good thing is, this is where the real healing begins. And you can start to build yourself into the kind of stable, emotionally aware person that any partner would want back in their lives. So that leaves the question, what is the real work? What is the work that rebuilds emotional stability? Well, waiting around for things to happen won't heal you. Only deep psychological work will build lasting change. So yes, time may dull the edges of the pain, but it's the effort that you put into understanding and processing your emotions that truly helps you move forward. And oftentimes people think that moving forward is moving away from, an ex-partner or moving away from that relationship, but that's not what it's about. So it's not just about how much time passes, it's about what you do with that time. And this kind of work, this psychological work, is not easy. It forces you to confront some pretty uncomfortable truths and face the pain head on. You end up having to ask yourself hard questions about who you are when no one is watching, how you show up in your day-to-day life when your partner isn't there, when your family members aren't there, when no one sees you. How do you show up on a day-to-day basis? This emotional vulnerability can be pretty terrifying, especially after a breakup, which is why so many people avoid it altogether. Instead, they can throw themselves into these distractions, hoping to escape this sadness or this awkwardness or this embarrassment or shame. But avoiding it doesn't erase the reality of the breakup. So what does this deep work look like? Well, a lot of people can find just journaling is quite a powerful tool. Now, this isn't just like, writing a daily diary, writing your thoughts or, like a teenage girl on their bed, sort of talking about that sort of stuff. But, logging your thoughts, logging your emotions, and being able to begin at a basic level, just externalizing them can be kind of like unclogging a drain. This is slowly clearing up the built-up debris. And in this case, the debris is your emotions, to start to restore some flow back to your life, right? So write down the feelings that you're having, whether it's anger, confusion, sadness. This starts to get the ball rolling and starts to create a space where your emotions can exist without judgment. And this can start to help you make sense of the breakup. But don't stop there. What you can also do is you can write a journal from your partner's perspective. So talk about what they may be feeling, what they could be processing right now, what their thoughts are and have been of you within the relationship. Starting to get into a habit of taking a look at how other people see you. Building self-awareness starts with yourself, starts with your own feelings. But true self-awareness is also being able to understand how people see you from their perspective, how people see you in their own way, and how other people's feelings are different but can coexist with yours at the same time. And this can get you into a much healthier habit of being able to understand these two seemingly opposing points of view existing in the same space. Next, start to reflect on your relationship. So this isn't about blaming yourself, but this is a deeper understanding of yourself. So start asking and recognizing, what patterns did I fall into? Did I ignore my partner's needs, my partner's thoughts? Did I dismiss them? Did my insecurities influence my actions? What were the things that I was weakest at? What are the things that I have been holding off facing up to? Being able to reflect on these moments helps you to identify areas for growth, and it starts to begin the process to avoid repeating these same mistakes in the future. But after that, it's really important to start rebuilding your sense of self-worth. So yes, we can have time where we feel sad. Yes, we can have time where we can take a look at where we need to improve. But we can't stop there. We have to rebuild that self-worth to be able to build ourselves a path forward so that we are growing. Reflection without action is just wallowing. If you're spending all your time thinking about where you could improve but not actually improving, this is just wallowing. It doesn't help. It actually creates a worse situation because you end up just feeling guilty. You end up feeling bad. You end up feeling sad, and nothing changes. And then you feel worse about yourself. So rebuilding your sense of self-worth is going to be a crucial step. So after a breakup, it's really easy to question your value or feel like your worth was tied to this relationship, but start to consider your self-worth as the foundation of a house. You know, if it's unstable, nothing built on it will last, including a relationship. So starting to rebuild this emotional stability comes from recognizing your inherent value as a person, independent of anyone else's approval. And this can come from building this growth path forward, building a step-by-step method for yourself to be able to know where you would like to grow, who you would like to become, and taking those action steps to get there. And this can help you reclaim your autonomy, your freedom, and start to rediscover who you are as an individual. What this does is this creates like a self-leadership. You sort of take responsibility for your own emotions and stop waiting for other people to accommodate them. This stops you from forcing people to change what they do in order to accommodate your emotions, and gives you the skills to be able to take responsibility for themselves and your own well-being. And what this does is it sets the stage for a healthier relationship in the future. But most of all, dig deep into thinking about the kind of partner that you want to become. Start building these habits, not just once a week or something like that. Build daily habits. The habits that you build now directly shape your relationships that you create later. So what you do today, not in 2 weeks' time or 3 weeks' time, or when your ex-partner reaches out to you, what you're doing today will have an impact in 3 months' time, in 6 months' time. So start to ask yourself, what qualities do I want to bring to a relationship? How can I practice those qualities in my life today? Who do I want to be when my partner isn't around? This is about living and breathing these changes and this growth that you want to be as a partner. How do you want to show up? So this isn't about waiting for somebody else to transform you. It's about becoming the kind, emotionally present person that you aspire to be. And doing this work creates a new foundation for a relationship. It helps to give you emotional clarity and helps you to understand your feelings, your actions, instead of just reacting impulsively. And ultimately, especially when you're trying to rebuild a relationship, this strengthens your self-worth and it makes you less dependent on external validation from your partner. And it makes you more confident in your own value and your own direction. Digging into this growth doesn't just make you more stable, it makes you more attractive. Building this emotional stability and personal growth shows not just your partner, but people around you that you're not looking for someone to complete you. You're already whole and you're ready to share your life from a place of strength. You don't need a lot from other people. So you don't ask for a lot from other people because you're able to fulfill it yourself. And this is where you can come from a place of want rather than a needy place within the relationship. And this is what a lot of my members have found, is that by making sure that they are always taking steps every single day to grow, to improve themselves, to get more stable emotionally, financially, etc., getting themselves to a really good place means that they become less needy as a result of this. And this helps to build reattraction within their partner, whether it's their ex-partner or their current partner. And if you want to join us, if you want to be part of this, then join my relationship bootcamp, where you'll learn the same foundational steps that all of my members start with in order to start repairing their relationships from the ground up. All you have to do is click on the link in the description to grab your spot. You know, true healing after a breakup isn't about waiting for your partner to do something or hiding behind some sort of distractions. It's about rebuilding your emotional foundation and confronting the hard truths. Avoiding only brings pain, while facing your emotions makes you stronger, makes you more resilient, and it makes you more stable. You know, this is why I talk a lot about when it comes to repairing a relationship, avoiding your ex-partner. This creates a habit, a cycle within yourself of weakness, because it means that you avoid the pain of being around your partner. You don't sit there with the discomfort. And this is really unattractive if you're trying to rebuild a relationship. Walking away from your partner and cutting off all contact, doing this no contact rule or whatever it is, this creates an unhealthy cycle within yourself. It creates a habit of weakness, not resilience moving forward. You know, we can't fool ourselves into thinking that strength is avoiding difficult situations. Strength comes from being able to be in a difficult situation, in an uncomfortable situation, and still being able to show up and be the person that you want to be regardless. And that's the difference that we're looking to get to in order to rebuild attraction with an ex-partner. And a deeper dive on this, especially when it comes to repairing a relationship, which I'll link to on the screen. Avoiding these situations is not the action that you want to take if you want to repair a relationship. So I'll leave you with that deep dive video, and I'll see you over there.